All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another fun-filled, action-packed, non-flipped Algebra 2 classroom video. This is Unit 7, Day 2 notes to solving by completing the square. So far we've looked at a couple of different methods for solving quadratic equations where we find what x equals, right? We looked at graphing, that way you can see visually where your graph is crossing the x-axis. We did factoring, we used the Xbox method to solve for x. Yesterday we did the square root method, which is very simple, very quick, but it only works sometimes. And today we're going to be learning about completing the square. This is completely new, okay? But completing the square is very useful because it works for all quadratic equations. Factoring only works when the numbers work out well, right? Square root method, that's very rare occasions. And graphing, who likes graphing? So with completing the square, our goal here is to take a quadratic equation and rewrite it as a perfect square in the form of this right here, x, parentheses, x plus something squared. So we're taking a quadratic equation and making it into a perfect square. And so to do this, we're going to write x squared plus bx plus a blank. We don't know what goes in that blank, okay? But when you find out the number that goes in this blank, then this equation can change and condense into a perfect square, like the parentheses x plus the blank squared. This is called completing the square because we're trying to complete this equation to make it into a perfect square. All right, we just don't know what that number is. But how do you find that number? It's very simple. It's actually, you're just going to take b divided by 2 and then square. That's what goes in there. But to make this a little more obvious, to make it more visual, we're just going to do a bunch of examples, okay? So, remember, look at example number 1. We're trying to take our quadratic equations and condense them into a perfect square, like this, squared. And it's always going to be x plus something, right? So how do I know what goes after the x right here? 6, and then just divide it by 2. So we're not going to put 6. You take this and you divide it by 2, and that number goes right there. Oh. So it's just b divided by 2. b is 6, right? Mm-hmm. If I divide that 6 by 2, what is it? 3. So it's going to be x plus 3 squared. This is what our goal is, right? We're going for this then. But, so let me show you exactly what happened. We take the 6 divided by 2. If this is our goal, x plus 3 squared, then what's going to go in this blank? We take this 3, and we have to square it. So what is 3 squared?
9.
So 9 is what goes in this blank right here. And so these two equations are equal to each other. X squared plus 6x plus 9 is the same thing as x plus 3 squared. So let's look at number 2 then. Number 2, our parentheses, we're going to make it a perfect square. X, what goes after x here? 5. How did you get that 5?
10 divided by 2.
That's right, you take this 10 divided by 2, and so you got plus 5, right? So if 5 is in there, what is going to be my blank number right here? 25, right? We just square that 5. Just like that. Okay, number 3. What is my perfect square goal that I'm going for? X plus 7 squared, that's right. And if 7 is the number in here, what is C going to be? 49, that's it. We just square that 7 and 49. Okay, number 4. What's going to be my perfect square? X minus 11, that's right. Keep your sign. It's negative 22. Divide that negative 22 by 2, you get negative 11. And don't forget the squared on the outside, right? So if 11 is on the inside right there, what is my C value going to be? 121. You just square the 11. And notice C is always going to be a positive because even if it's negative, you square a negative, that's negative times negative, makes it a positive. So, okay, now look at number 5. Number 5 is a little different because that B value is an odd number, right? You can't divide that evenly by 2. But whenever you have an odd number as your b value, just leave it as a fraction. So this is going to be
Negative 7/2.
exactly x minus 7 over 2. That's very good. X minus 7 over 2. And then we have to square the 7 over 2, right? When you square that, all you do is square the top and square the bottom. So what's my c value going to be? Remember, when you square it, it comes out positive all the time because negative times negative is positive. 49 over 4, that's right. And then lastly, for number 6, if I complete the square, what's my perfect square going to be?
X minus 9 halves
X minus 9 halves squared,
squared.
right. And so then when I square this 9 halves, what does it become? 81 over 4. That's right. And so this process of finding your perfect square and finding this c value, right? That's called completing the square, okay? So now we've seen how you actually complete the square. We need to see how we use this to solve for x, because we didn't solve for x in any of these. We just completed the square. So now we'll see how we can actually use this method to solve. So here are some general instructions, but it's better to just do some examples, and that will, practice makes perfect, boys and girls. So this one says, solve the following by completing the square. We got x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So we're actually trying to solve. That means we're trying to find x equals what, right? However, this looks a little different because our examples up here, notice all of these, it was x squared plus bx and then a blank, right? We're looking for that third space, right? That c value. But over here, it's x squared minus 4x minus 12. That's not a blank, that's a 12 right there. We need it to be an empty space, right? When we completed the square, every time we had an empty space and we're looking for what goes in there. So I don't want this 12 right here. I want this to be an empty space. So how do I get rid of this 12?
Oh, add 12.
Add 12, that's right. Just add 12 to both sides. Oh, every single class period I've done this. All right, so I'm going to rewrite the whole thing over here. Right, we want an empty space right there. So we're going to add 12 to cancel out and leave ourselves with an empty space. So when I add the 12, my new equation is going to be x squared. Wow. Minus 4x, and then leave yourself that space, right? Because we're trying to see how we complete the square. Equals 12. And now once we get to this step, remember we're going to do exactly what we just did. We're going to complete the square. So we got parentheses. What is my perfect square going to be?
X minus -2 squared and then
X minus what?
2.
X minus 2? You said squared? Okay, right. And so if this is a 2 right here, what's going to go in that space then?
4.
A 4, right. And it's plus 4, right? Plus 4. But now here's the thing. Now we're actually solving, right? We have this equal sign right here. So if you add 4 to one side of the equal sign, what do you need to do to the other side of the equal sign? Add 4, right. You can't just add 4 out of nowhere and just put it on one side and not the other. Whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you got to do to the other side as well. So you have to add 4 to both sides then. So that means then that this x minus 2 squared is going to equal, what's 12 plus 4? 16.
So wait, which one's the answer?
There's no answer yet. We have to solve for x, right? So this is the completing the square part that we just did, right? So now we have this perfect square, right? Because from here, look, it's easy to solve because we can just take the square root and, right? So let's solve for x then. We got x minus 2 squared equals 16. What do I need to do to solve for x?
Square root it.
Square root. When I take the square root of both sides, what's left?
X minus 2
Equals
4.
just 4?
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus 4, yes. Plus or minus 4. And then we got one more step. What do we got to do?
Add 2.
Add the 2. And so my answer is going to be,
X plus minus 4 plus 2.
So we can write 2 plus or minus 4. X equals 2 plus or minus 4. Can I leave my answer like that though? No, because those are whole numbers, so you got to actually work it out and show me what the answer values are. So one of my answers is going to be what?
X equals 4 plus 2.
X equals 2 plus 4.
X equals 6.
So that's going to be x equals 6. So one of my answers is x equals 6. And then my other answer is going to be x equals
4 minus
2 minus 4.
2. 2 minus 4.
Don't change the order there. Keep it how it is. Right? Because look, it's positive 2 plus or minus the 4. So we got 2 plus 4 and we have 2 minus 4, which is, what's 2 minus 4?
Negative 2.
Negative 2, that's right. So my answers are x equals 6 and x equals negative 2. You're always supposed to come out with 2 answers here. And that's how you solve for x by completing the square. So we got a couple more examples here that will show you all the different types of problems you might encounter. So let's go through these examples down here. So remember, when you're doing these problems, you're always trying to get that x squared and the x term on one side of the equal sign and your numbers on the other side of the equal sign, okay? That's how you start it, right? So look at number 1. Is that already in the form that we want it to be?
No.
Why did you say no?
Because the x, the 8x.
What's wrong with 8x?
You put it into like the x.
This one's already how we want it to be. If we're completing the square, remember, look. This is x squared plus 8x, then there's a blank, equals negative 9. We have the x squared term and the x term on one side of the equal sign, and the numbers on the other side. That's how we want it to be.
Yeah.
You said no, it's not.
I thought you asked like, never mind.
Okay. Okay, so this is the form that we want it to be. So, what's my perfect square going to look like then? X plus 4. And if that's a 4 right there, what goes in the missing blank? Plus 16. I had 16 right there. What else do I need to do?
Add 16 and negative 9.
That's right. Got to add 16 to both sides then. Which means that x plus 4 squared is going to equal what? 7. That's right. Because negative 9 plus 16 is 7. So this is the completing the square part. Now we're going to solve for x. How do we solve for x? Square root. Which leaves you with what? X plus 4 equals? What do you always have to include when you take the square root though? That's right, plus or minus the square root of 7. Okay? And so now just one more step here. What do we need to do to solve for x? Subtract 4. So my final answer should be what?
X equals negative 4 plus or minus 7.
Plus or minus square root of 7. That's right. There you go. Perfect. Nice. Okay. That's the answer. You see, that's 2 answers, right? Because we got the plus version and we got the minus version. You could write it out in 2, but you know, why write it twice when you just put it once? Because it doesn't matter. We don't know what square root of 7 is, so you can't give me an exact number anyways, right?
So when it's in the square root like that, we don't have to.
Right, right. Only when it's just normal whole numbers, you actually have to give me the 2 values. Yeah. This 4? You take the b value and divide it by 2. Always. So on number 2 now, is this x squared equals 27 minus 6x? Is that in the form that we want it to be? No. What do we need to do? Add the 6x to both sides because we want the x squared and the 6x to be on the same side. So now what's my new equation?
X squared plus 6x.
Mm-hmm.
That line and then equals 27.
27, that's right. That line's supposed to be a blank, okay? All right, so there we go. And now we're going to complete the square. So what's my perfect square that I'm looking for?
X plus 3
That's right, squared. And so if that's a 3 right there, what's going to go in my blank? How do I complete the square? Plus 9, that's right. I add that 9 to that side. What else do I have to do? Add the 9 to the other side as well. That's right. It's got to keep it even. So that means x plus 3 squared equals 36. And so this number is going to work out really well. Let's solve for x now. What do we have to do? Take square root of both sides. What does that leave me with? Plus or minus 6. That's right. And now? So what's my answer so far? And so on this one, since we've got two whole numbers, you actually got to work it out and give me the two answers. So what's one of the answers going to be? X equals negative 3 minus 6. Okay, so let's solve this one. What is this? Negative 9. So x equals negative 9. That's one of my answers, okay? And what's my other answer going to be? Plus 6. That's right. We got the net minus 6, so now we got to do the plus 6. So what is negative 3 plus 6? X equals 3. That's right. Very good. And those are two answers. All right, let's go to number 3 then. On number 3, x squared minus 12 equals 8x. Is that in the form that we want it to be? No. What do we need to move around here? It's already being subtracted, so we got to add the 12. Is that it, though?
No.
Subtract what?
8.
8x. That's right. We got to subtract the 8x as well. So we need to get the x squared and the x term on the same side and get the numbers on the other side. So this time, we got to move two terms. Boom, boom. So what's my new equation?
X squared minus 8x.
That's right. Okay? And so now we're going to complete the square. So what's my perfect square going to be? X minus 4 squared. And so, whoa. If I have a 4 inside there, what's going to be my blank? Plus 16. Also, I have to add 16 to the other side. That's right. So x minus 4 squared is going to equal 28. Very good. So now from here, I need to solve for x. So what do I do? Square root of both sides. Boom, boom. That leaves me with well, this one is the one that we're going to be able to break down, right? So let's just leave it as square root of 28 first. And what does the square root of 28 break down into?
7, 4, or 4 and 7.
That's right, 4 and 7. Good. So x minus 4 equals the square root of 4 times the square root of 7. That's very good because we can simplify the square root of 4, right? What does that simplify into? Plus or minus 2. So now we have x minus 4 equals plus or minus 2 square root of 7. Are we done?
No.
What do we need to do? Add the 4. I add the 4, and what's my final answer? That is correct. X equals 4 plus or minus 2 square roots of 7. Very good. Now on to the very last one. Number 4, 2x squared plus 24x equals 26. This one looks a little different than all the other ones we've been doing. What's different about this one? Right, the 2x squared. That's weird. That's not what the other ones look like. What can we do, though? Okay, yeah. Why are you like smiling so much? Yeah, divide all the terms by 2. We can divide all the terms by 2. And so when I divide all the terms by 2, now what's my new equation? 12? You want to leave that blank, right? Because we're completing the square. Equals? 13. Okay, so now we're going to do the completing the square. So what is my perfect square going to be? X plus 6, right? Squared. And so if there's a 6 right there, what do I need to add to my plus 36? That's right. On both sides. So if I'm adding 36 to 13, that means x plus 6 squared equals 49. Very good. That's a good number. Now we're going to solve for x. What do we need to do? Square root. X plus 6 equals? Plus or minus 7. And then? Minus 6 from both sides. X equals negative 6 plus or minus 7. That's right. But these are whole numbers, which means you got to actually work it out and give me the two numbers. So what's one of my answers going to be? X equals negative 6 plus 7. Yeah, well, let's go step by step to really show what's happening here, right? X equals negative 6 plus 7. What's that? X equals 1. That's one of your answers. And now how do I get the other answer? Which means x equals negative 13. Very good. And those are your two answers. X equals 1 and x equals negative 13. And this is a method you can always use to solve for x with quadratic equations. It's completing the square. That's it for these notes. So see you in the next one. Peace.